So we are talking sports nutrition today. A lot of you have requested that we talk about sports nutrition, but I also thought it was necessary that we do, because oftentimes when we look at sports in Zambia or in Africa in general, I don't usually hear nutrition being talked about as an important aspect to performance, to endurance, or even to winning those games. We talk about the quality of coaches that we have, the training routine, we talk about the speed of the players on the field, but we rarely talk about their nutritional status. So today I want to bring to you the importance of nutrition in sports. Mind you, the sporting career is very short. Most athletes would retire by age 40, that's actually pushing it. Others by 35, you are retired, unlike the rest of us who retire at 60. But how is nutrition going to complement that? Because this is a risky field, injuries are very common. And so do you want to retire with an injury that will require you to spend all your money on treatment? Definitely not. You want to make sure that you are well fed, to ensure that you are one of the best players, to earn more, but of course also to retire strong. So let's talk nutrition. From my perspective, I watched the highlights of the Argentina-Zambia game, and what I could see was that our team were not as fast as the Argentinians. Let's be honest. I could see how powerful the kicks of the opponent were. The Argentinians would kick, and when they kicked the ball, they meant business. But for us, yeah, you can see as though things were really in slow motion. And towards the end of the game, it could also be the nerves, the fact that they lost morale, especially after the third goal went in. They became slow. So I'm guessing their endurance was affected. Or it could also be that they became tired. That in itself telling me something to do with their nutrition was also at play, because endurance, speed, strength has to do with nutrition. So generally speaking, I see a lot of the Southern African players smaller in stature compared to, for example, the West Africans. When you look at the AFCON games, West Africa usually does way better than Southern African players. And I would like to believe they have bigger muscles, they are bigger in stature compared to the Southern Africans. But not to say that for you to play soccer, you need to have big muscles. Big muscles, in fact, it will actually slow you down. But I do believe that you need a good amount of muscle to be able to make your kicks more definitive. I know for sure that in the periodization of the training of soccer players, definitely some strength exercise is there, but I don't think there is consumption of enough protein to sustain the strength training. Strength training meaning a bit of weight lifting, bench presses, and that kind of thing. It's not only running around the pitch, it's not only jogging or any cardio exercises, but it's also strength training. But strength training without enough protein will not result in the amount of muscles that you need to ensure more definitive kicks and also strength when running. So any athlete, professional athlete needs at least 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. So if you are an athlete out there, a soccer player, you weigh maybe say 70, I'm guessing 70, 75, most athletes would be in those ranges, male athletes that is. If you're 70 kilograms, for example, you would need not less than 80 grams of protein. Yes, you heard me right, 80 grams of protein if you weigh 70 kilograms, because that's how we calculate the nutritional needs of athletes, especially when it comes to macronutrients. It has to be per kilogram body weight. It's not calculated like the rest of us. A person like me, who just does a lot of walking, a lot of, running maybe once in a while, but not at a professional level, I only need about 0.8 grams per kilogram body weight. So you see the difference. I need 0.8 grams per kilogram of my body weight, but you, the athlete, professional athlete, needs at least 1.2. Now, if you ask me as a nutritionist, most people who I plan 1.2 for are female athletes. So if you're a male athlete, you probably need about 1.4, 1.5, nothing more than 2 grams kilogram body weight, because anything above 2 grams is not necessary. It's just a waste. It will just be excreted by the body. So anything between 1.2 and 2 grams, whether you're a bodybuilder, footballer, whether you're a tennis player, whether you are a samkonga, a runner, you need about 1.2 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of your body weight. Now, this is not only to build muscle. If you remember from your school, yes, it's true, protein is used to also repair. Repair is important, and also for recovery. So it's to build your muscle, to ensure that your performance is stronger, but also to repair and prepare you for injuries. So anything can happen in the field. You could get kicked on the leg and things like that. And so you do need that protein to repair. But of course, these things have to be individualized, okay? We do not plan diets for the whole team and say, oh, 11 players will go by this diet. It has to be individualized. And so it hurts me, actually. There's a video that I watched from some 10 years back where the FAS communications officer was being grilled over why the team was having kapenta. I think it was the Shipolopolo team.
As the Shipolopolo finalized their training program in Lusaka, reports of poor diet continued to surround the women's camp. On Monday, it was reported that the women's national team had been subjected to kapenta and cabbage, but according to the Football Association of Zambia FAS investigations, this is not true.
Why are they eating kapenta? And I'm like, why not? You know, I just stumbled upon that video and I'm like, wait a minute, why not? Why is kapenta not a food to give professional athletes like the ones you're seeing running behind me? It is a good food, high in protein, high in minerals also. When we're talking about recovery, when you're talking about making your kicks more definitive, there is need for magnesium, there is need for calcium. The muscles don't just contract on their own simply because you've moved your leg. For you to avoid cramps, for example, you need sufficient amounts of magnesium, sufficient amounts of calcium, and kapenta is one good source. I think the only thing that I would disagree with is maybe the use of seed oils. We use a lot of seed oils in our cooking, generally speaking, but I think when you are becoming a professional athlete or aspiring to become a professional athlete, you need to leave out seed oils. Seed oils, ultra-processed foods, you need to leave that out because it causes a lot of inflammation. Already the sport itself will result in inflammation because of a lot of running and injuries and that kind of thing. And so you do not want to worsen that by using seed oils, which are high in omega-6. You want to use more of the omega-3 oils, you know, fatty fish. So consume a lot of fatty fish, consume a lot of kapenta itself. It's not a fatty fish, yes, but it does contain a good amount of protein as well as minerals that are necessary for your recovery as well as performance. So that's it about protein. When it comes to carbohydrates, there is no diet that can completely have no carbohydrates. If you are consuming vegetables, trust me, you are taking in carbohydrates because a good amount of vegetables, I would say maybe what we call an exchange of vegetables, contains at least 5 grams of carbohydrates. So what do you mean by no carbohydrates? I think what they really mean is no starch, but I still disagree because you do need that energy to run on the field. You are not going to sustain yourself on an empty stomach. You're not going to now start breaking down protein for energy. When that starts to happen, breaking down of protein, breaking down of fat, you're really wasting that amount of protein that should be used for repair to now sustain you on the field. So to avoid that, I recommend that you do take in carbohydrates, but just ensure that it is a complex kind of carbohydrates. Of course, you do also need some simple sugars because simple sugars gives you that quick energy, while complex carbohydrates are more for endurance. So for that quick energy, I'll advise my professional athletes to have a sugary drink. Even Zigolo is good enough as you are playing. You know, you drink some water, drink some Zigolo, that is acceptable, but also have a complex carbohydrate before a game to ensure that you are sustained in the long run. If you're going to eat in Shima, maybe have Shima from Soga. I also saw a video some time back of a football team that had parked at a fast food restaurant and they were buying, I think chips and chicken for their team. And I was asking myself, if these are professional athletes, because I saw the bus and it was written something FC, and I'm thinking these are people training to be professional athletes, or at least are professional athletes, but they are actually being fed these foods deep fried in seed oils and also very high in starch and very little that is needed really to increase their performance and endurance. So I think the diets of our athletes need to be looked at more closely. So that's about carbohydrates. Ensure that you have a good amount. So foods that you will consume, of course, are sorghum, millet, as well as getting your carbohydrates from beans. If you ask me, generally speaking, I will not omit beans. Beans of any kind. Let me just say legumes. We're talking the common beans, lentils, which are also high in calcium, as well as a number of other minerals. We're talking cowpeas, bambara nuts, groundnuts. These are foods that you can even carry as snacks in between, like when you have your halftime break, have some groundnuts or a handful of peanuts to keep you going. So all those are foods that I would recommend for our professional athletes. When it comes to fat, I've been asked several times, is it okay to include fat in a diet of a professional athlete? Or professional athletes saying, since I'm an athlete, it should be okay for me to eat excessive fats because I burn it up anyway when I'm playing or when I'm running on the field. I disagree that you need excess fat. So first of all, what we do is we often start by calculating the carbohydrates that you need, calculating the protein. These are very important. And then when it comes to fat, it is really dependent on whether you need to lose weight or you need to gain. So of course, you have a full nutrition assessment where we get to check whether you are healthy enough in terms of weight for the sport. So if you're a bit on the chubby side, you may need to lose some weight, and so the fat content of your diet should also reduce. We rarely want to temper protein and carbohydrates, but we'll actually play around with the fat content to ensure that we also motivate weight loss. So if it's for weight loss, we're looking at 0.5 to about 1.5 grams per kilogram body weight. But generally speaking, nothing less than 20% of your total energy. So if you need about, say, 10,000 kilojoules of energy to sustain you, of course that's including your physical activity level, then the fat content should not be less than 20% of that total energy, and then the rest being from protein and carbohydrates. But do not forget your vegetables. I know that as professional athletes, you do have preferences, which is okay, but vegetables are very important for those vitamins and minerals. Don't just focus on calories, don't just focus on energy. Your vitamins and your minerals are also important, and it is best obtained from food and not supplementation. I know a number of you are using all these protein shakes and supplements also over the counter, but I really recommend that you get your micronutrients, that is vitamins and minerals, from the food you eat, because they are more readily available, they are more authentic than the synthetic minerals that you would consume from a supplement. And so vitamins and minerals are best obtained from fruits. Consume a lot of fruits. It gives you that sugar. Remember, I talked about how you need both complex carbohydrates that sustain you and ensure endurance on the pitch, but also you do need simple sugars, and one way of obtaining that simple sugar is through fruits. And one fruit that I would not omit from a sporting person's diet would be bananas. Bananas, oranges are readily available almost everywhere throughout the year. And so maximize on having bananas and oranges, but explore other fruits as well, grapes and so forth. It might be a little bit more expensive to sustain a good diet for a sporting person, but trust me, I believe it is worth it. It is worth it because it protects you on the field. It protects you in the game. Like I said, you're starting your career in your 20s or so, but the career will most likely be terminated by age 35 or before the age of 40. And so you want to make sure that that time that you use, of course, you earn some good amount of money that will sustain you for the rest of your life, but not only focusing on money by ensuring that you train hard and that you stand out in the game, but also ensuring that you stay healthy. Avoid heart attacks, diabetes, injuries that can be more chronic in nature with poor nutrition. So good nutrition ensures quicker recovery, ensures that you also prevent injuries, and therefore when you'll be retiring at age 35 or so with millions in your account, you also ensure that you are healthy and therefore your wealth is protected. So remember, nutrition is part of health and health is wealth.